Welcome into an Ask Anything mailbag. I am your host, Jake Rietma, and fired up to talk some Dolphins football with you. It's always a good time with the Aqua and Orange, minus Sunday. Yeah, we don't need to talk about that anymore. Let's move forward to this huge game against the Buffalo Bills with the AFC East title on the line. Now, based on the start from the Dolphins, it's kind of unexpected to be in this position, but here we are. No reason to cry over spilled milk, and in the past, it's the past. Let's move forward, turn the page, and focus on Buffalo and beating the Bills so that the Dolphins can secure that number 2 seed. So without further ado, let's get to some questions, and we start with Dolphins Today legend Chad Jones, a member of the Aqua Club and a one-of-a-kind legend on Dolphins Today, Chad Jones. With Chubb out, X and Waddle out, with Jerome Baker coming back, do you think our defense can bounce back? Great question, and honestly, this is one of the thoughts that was keeping me up at night, is how will Vic Fangio find a way to compile a winning combination in the most important game on Sunday in Week 18 of the National Football League? You talk about guys that have to have that next man up mentality. So we'll take it down piece by piece. Bradley Chubb out. That means Andrew Van Ginkel, Emmanuel Ogbah, Melvin Ingram have to find a way to increase the production from the edge rusher position, get pressure on Josh Allen, get to Josh Allen, sack Josh Allen, make him uncomfortable. And I think those three collectively will be up to the task. You can also sprinkle in Zach Sieler, Christian Wilkins, and other guys on the interior to force the pressure up the middle, collapse the pocket, all of that good stuff that's so important in slowing down a prolific offense led by Josh Allen. Now, part of that is the secondary, of course. So no Xavier Howard, likely no Xavier Howard, hasn't been confirmed yet, but that means Jalen Ramsey and veteran Eli Apple have to step up as the outside corners. Kader Kohou as the nickel corner needs to play better. Kader Kohou's shown flashes this season of being an elite nickel corner, and although he hasn't done it against Buffalo, nobody really played well in that first matchup against Buffalo. I'm confident in Vic Fangio to dial up schematically opportunities for Kader Kohou to make plays like he's done in years past, or in weeks past, I should say. Kader Kohou actually has 4 sacks on the season, and dialing up corner blitzes from that nickel spot is one way to deceive the offense and get Kader Kohou involved. Not to mention, I think Jalen Ramsey is as good as it gets as a lockdown corner. I would love to see Jalen Ramsey shadow Stephon Diggs the same way Jalen Ramsey shadowed Garrett Wilson of the New York Jets the second time they played. Because remember, Garrett Wilson, in an entire game being shadowed by Jalen Ramsey, had 1 target. That's how much Jalen Ramsey put the clamps down. So, yes, you lose quite a bit of production on the corner position without Xavier Howard, but adding in Jalen Ramsey and then hoping Eli Apple can pick up the slack is where this Dolphins team is at right now. With Jalen Waddle out, Dolphins have talked about the potential of him playing. So if he is out, that means it's up to Braxton Berrios and River Craycraft. I've also looked at the way Durham Smythe has gotten more involved in the passing games in recent games with certain receivers out. Durham Smythe was the second leading receiver in the game against the Ravens, and I thought played one of his better games despite the Dolphins being severely outplayed. So Durham Smythe at the tight end position, one more way to increase the options for Tua in the passing game. All right, Christine Wilkerson asked, does Miami have a shot at beating Buffalo? Absolutely. I think in a division-deciding game, as cliche as it might sound, you really do throw the record books out. It's about what team wants and can execute better than the others. I think it being at Hard Rock Stadium is a huge bonus for the Dolphins because we know, and the numbers back it up, the Dolphins are a much better team at home. And at this point in the season, I think it's also important to note that every NFL team is dealing with injuries in some capacity. Yes, the Dolphins have been depleted probably more than most teams, but that being said, they have done a great job in most instances, not necessarily against Baltimore, and recency bias is what it is. But in most instances, if you watch Hard Knocks, it seems like collectively they have the mental approach to be able to overcome the obstacles, overcome the injury adversity that they face, and put their best foot forward. And I'm fully counting on Mike McDaniel and his staff to have this team ready to do exactly that in a huge spot, primetime Sunday night football with the AFC East divisional title on the line. But I've had my sentiments. I've made my remarks. What say you? Be honest with me. Let me know in the comments. What's your confidence level in the Dolphins win on Sunday against the Bills? Scale it for me, 1 through 10. Great question coming in from tomorrow. Cuber Dolphins. What would your pick for the 2024 NFL Draft be? Very good question, because if you asked me this question 2 weeks ago, I'd say offensive line. Best prospect available at the offensive line. And once that combine comes into form, we'll have a really better idea of who those offensive line candidates might be. But now I'm beginning to think perhaps maybe defensive line is the way to go as a position of need, because you also factor in guys like Christian Wilkins who need to get a deal done or they become a free agent. The Dolphins' cap space is not great. So there's all kinds of factors that go into this, but I still like the idea of solidifying or adding depth to the offensive line. I know Teron Armstead's durability has been such a question this year. Dolphins fans are somewhat fed up with him, even though he's an all-pro caliber talent. His availability, his durability just has not been there. So shoring up the offensive line might be the approach to take. You know what's always the approach to take is Prize Picks. You always have a winning proposition with Prize Picks. It's the most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports and the only daily fantasy sports platform you need. It's also the largest independently owned daily platform for daily fantasy sports. And what I love about it is Prize Picks has an insurance policy. That's right. If one of your players that you make a Prize Picks on is injured in the first half, that player is rebooted and removed from the equation. So Prize Picks is the only daily fantasy sports platform with an insurance policy. That's one of the many things I love about it. Also, quick withdrawals, easy payment plans. It's all going down at prizepicks.com/CLNS. And I helped you out last week with some awesome Prize Picks. I'll try and do the same this week. So I'm picking more on Tua Tagovailoa's projected passing yards of 264.5, more on Tyreek Hill's projected wide receiving yards at 94.5, and less on Stephon Diggs. I've got a good feeling Jalen Ramsey is going to put the clamps down on Stephon Diggs. So that's how it works. You pick more or less on a player's projected stat line, and that's when the payments come in. When you go 3 for 3, if you've got a power play, that's going to pay out even better than a flex play. You only need to get 2 out of 3 correct in that. PrizePicks.com/CLNS is where you got to go, because we're offering up to a $100 deposit match. And because we love you and we care about you, we're putting that link right in the chat of today's video, as well as the comments, because we want to make it easy on you. PrizePicks.com/CLNS for up to a $100 deposit match. This one's coming in from GM EV. Should Miami call Dalvin Cook? No. Next question. No. All right, I will humor this question because I know that's the big news and the juicy tweets that are out there surrounding the NFL. Dalvin Cook, it didn't work out with the Jets. They're parting ways. He was the guy we entertained at the beginning of this season. Many people thought he would land in Miami. But when you look at the production of Raheem Mostert, Devon Achane, throw in Jeff Wilson, and oh yeah, rookie Chris Brooks, we don't need Dalvin Cook. And frankly, this is going to sound disrespectful, but he is cooked. He's exactly that. Dalvin Cook is cooked. He is washed up. His best football is behind him. I do not want to even entertain that idea. We're going to ride with who we came with. But you get the idea. Dalvin Cook is not the guy that we need to see in a Dolphins uniform. And that's no disrespect. He had a great career, but he's on the back 9 of that career. In fact, he might be putting on 18 and heading to the clubhouse as far as his NFL career is concerned, in my opinion. But that's just my opinion. This one coming in from Sherry May. What's Zach Sieler's status? And good news. Well, as good news as we can come up with, because he did not practice. And so that had a lot of people speculating why. But it is simply an illness. He was feeling under the weather. So at this point in the season, why push him to go through a practice if he's not feeling up to it? Rest, get the bug out of you, and be ready to go for Sunday. So I know it's just kind of a short answer, but the explanation is he didn't practice because he was under the weather and feeling a little bit sick. But my inclination is that he'll be fine for Sunday. As always, we remind you that this is your one-stop shop for all things Miami Dolphins. It does not matter the time of day, the time of year. If there's Dolphins news, when there's Dolphins news, we have you covered on all angles. That's why you subscribe. Plus, the price is right. It's 100% free. And even though it would break my heart, let's say you subscribe, you don't love what you see, you don't love the Dolphins, you don't love daily content, you don't love live watch parties or live shows, then you can unsubscribe. But like I said, that would break my heart. But we here at Dolphins Today by Chat Sports love bringing you Dolphins news, rumors every single day, and that is why you subscribe. This one's coming in from Derek Washington with our injuries on the defensive side of the ball. How confident do you think we will pan out in the playoffs? It's a good question, Derek, and I think Sunday's outcome will tell us not all we need to know. I'm not ready to punt on the season if they lose and then have to go to Kansas City in the first round because, frankly, the Chiefs haven't been really good, and I would love an opportunity for a rematch against the Chiefs because, remember, the Dolphins lost to the Chiefs in Germany in a game that came down to the wire. The Dolphins were driving down by one score, couldn't get it to go, and we know what happened on that fourth down. The snap went off to his hands and so on and so forth. But that Dolphins defense held the Chiefs completely scoreless in the second half. In fact, only the 2 offensive touchdowns, the 21 points were from, or one was from a defensive touchdown. So you get the idea. I like the way the Dolphins match up against the Chiefs, who are not as good as they have been in past years, especially, of course, as the defending champs. But that said, I believe at this point in the NFL, when you have good on good, you have the playoffs forming, anybody can beat anybody. It's a cliche, but any given Sunday certainly rings true. And with that being said, regardless of the outcome on Sunday, I feel confident that the Dolphins moving forward can, in fact, be better than they were last year. They can win some playoff games and, again, go from there. Staying healthy has been a huge challenge for this Dolphins team, but my hope and my prayer is that the injury gods will finally be on the side of the Miami Dolphins. This one from Mark Cardinale. Can this current O-line hold up against the Bills' pass rush? Seems like the Ravens had pressure on Tua all day last Saturday. They absolutely have, and they absolutely did, I should say. And unfortunately, the Dolphins' offensive line, the production has kind of plummeted, especially in the last 4 games. Tua's been sacked 12 times in the last 4 games, whereas the previous 8 games, he had only been sacked 12 times. So that's double the amount of sacks this offensive line has been giving up. A lot of it has to do with the injuries. Obviously, no Connor Williams, and Rob Hunt's been out for the last 4 weeks, and Isaiah Wynn's been out. Isaiah Wynn's season likely over, but Rob Hunt practiced this week, and the Dolphins are very optimistic that Rob Hunt will be able to play. So you pair him with Teron Armstead, Lester Cotton, Liam Eichenberg, who's kind of had a roller coaster season, as well as Rob Hunt at the right guard position, then Austin Jackson at the right tackle. And I feel pretty good about that offensive line. Will it be perfect? Probably not, but protecting Tua in the passing game will be paramount, and I feel good about the Dolphins' ability to run block, as Miami's rushing attack has been one of the best all season long. Where does this Dolphins offense rank historically? Asked Fins fan for life. And I'm glad you asked, because they're very, very close to being the Dolphins' best offense in the history of the franchise. I came across this on Twitter and wanted to have it in the banks ready to share with you from Joe Shad. 390 yards of offense is what the Dolphins need on Sunday against the Bills to surpass the 84 Dan Marino-led team for the franchise record in total yards. Now, again, it's in a 17-game schedule compared to the 16-game schedule that it used to be, but the idea is this offense historically has the chance to be the best ever, and that would also be the 5th best total yards production by a team in NFL history. So for a lot of the year, they were trending to be the greatest offense ever. They took some steps back in their production, obviously. But those first 5 games of the season, they were on pace to outgain the greatest show on turf, that 99-2000 Rams team led by Kurt Warner. And they haven't quite surpassed them, but if they can get 390 yards, at least 390 yards, they would be the 5th best offense all time in NFL history, which is absolutely crazy to think about. So I'm asking you, do you think the Dolphins can break the franchise record? They need 390 yards. They average 410 yards per offense. So they just get their average, they would surpass that easily. So type Y for yes or N for no. Chef Zhu's in the house. What up, Chef Zhu? My guy. Which players could be a key factor on both sides of the ball? I love this question, so I'm going to give you an obvious one. Tyreek Hill on the offense. I think he's the most dynamic player in the NFL, and Mike McDaniel and company have to find a way to creatively get him the ball, and defenses are taking him away. Obviously, they're playing 2 high safeties with man coverage underneath, but if you go back to that game against Washington, if a team would be as foolish as to try to play him one-on-one man coverage, then that makes it easy. But obviously, that's probably not going to be the case, so it's up to Mike McDaniel to find ways to get him involved. He had 99 yards receiving against Baltimore, but I think he's the number 1 X factor on offense. Obviously, you throw Tua into that category as well. Now, an under-the-radar one I want to give to you is Durham Smythe, the tight end, and it seems like defenses leave the tight end with the host of weapons that the Dolphins have when you think about stopping Tyreek Hill, stopping Raheem Mostert, stopping Devon Achane. That leaves the tight end position susceptible to be single coverage by a linebacker or so on and so forth. And Durham Smythe, quietly but steadily, has started to become a more recognizable component of this offense, a more significant part of the production. So I hope and look for Durham Smythe to have a big game against the Buffalo Bills. Now, defensively, I'm going to say Jalen Ramsey, because that's an all-pro caliber talent that has proven he can take the opponent's best receiver completely out of it. Look at Garrett Wilson. I know he had Zach Wilson and Trevor Siemian throwing to him, but he was locked down, completely locked down on Garrett Wilson. And Jalen Ramsey, prior to that game against the Jets, in his first 7 games, had 3 interceptions, but he also was averaging less than 2 yards a catch on the opponent receiver, or less than 2 catches a game, I should say, on the opponent receiver that he was guarding. So not only is he taking them out of the game, but the quarterback's not even looking his way. So if Jalen Ramsey can lock down Stephon Diggs, I would love to see Vic Fangio utilize that type of man-on-man coverage because Jalen Ramsey is so good. Another guy that I think will be absolutely crucial on the defensive side, Andrew Van Ginkel. In the absence of Bradley Chubb, and of course Jaelan Phillips, both out with injuries, Andrew Van Ginkel then becomes, in my opinion, your most talented pass rusher. How about a super chat? That's always a good way to get on the Ask Anything mailbag. This one coming in from Zach Osinksa, and you never forget your first. It's a first-time super chat. You can remember this forever. Happy 2024, Zach. You are our first super chat of 2024. How about that? Crazy stuff. Stay in the 2nd seed and beat the Steelers. I agree. That would be the ideal situation if, in fact, the Dolphins can beat the Bills on Sunday, secure that number 2 seed, and then await the results from the rest of Week 18. But shout out to Zach. Appreciate your support of Dolphins today. And as we always do, we remind you that you can subscribe to this channel at youtube.com/Dolphins News. That is where the magic happens. We've got a live watch party for Sunday's game against the Buffalo Bills. We'll be on an hour before kickoff. And my friends, you won't want to miss it. A couple more to wrap it up here. Another super chat coming in from JB. Should the Fins consider signing JPP with Chubb out? That's kind of ironic, I guess, because obviously Jason Pierre-Paul was a part of this Dolphins team for really a short stint, only 2 or 3 weeks, played in 2 games, really not any production there. And I think with the change of circumstances, with Chubb now being out for the season, you certainly entertain the idea of bringing back an additional edge rusher. And a guy like JPP, hey, 2 Super Bowls, one with the Giants, one with the Bucks. Certainly a lot of postseason experience there. So I wouldn't hate that. It just would be kind of wild to think, hey, you were on the team, we cut you, and now you're back on the team because this guy got injured. But hey, stranger things have happened. So no, I don't hate that idea, and I'm not against that. So appreciate your support of the show, JB. And as a reminder, subscribe to Dolphins Today. Join the largest Dolphins YouTube community on the internet. And let's go Dolphins. Beat the Bills.